Hi everyone. I just wanted to record a short video that introduced sort of went over the basics of the trauma-informed agency assessment assignment. So there's two documents available to you on D2L. One is a Word document that is literally the description of the assignment, and the other is the assessment itself. Um, so let me tell you in essence what you're doing with this assignment. You're picking an agency, ideally one local to you, but doesn't necessarily have to be. Could be an agency that you've worked for, could be one that you work for now, could be one that you have done an internship with, or even one that maybe you want to work with. In short, it's really up to you, whatever agency you pick. And what you're doing is essentially assessing that agency for the degree to which they adhere to the principles of trauma-informed care. Now, the assessment that we're going to use is this PDF document that is on D2L, and this is actually something that Harris and Fallett developed. We read sort of a precursor last week, but this is actually an assessment that they developed. So the first page is sort of their guide. I don't know that there's much that's going to be too helpful to you on there, but the actual assessment itself starts on the second page. And as you can see, as we sort of scroll through it, it's pretty long. It's about 100, I think it's 103 questions, but it assesses sort of trauma-informed care in along sort of five dimensions. These dimensions are denoted with Roman numerals. So the fifth one, for example, is adapting policies. And your job is basically to indicate whether or not you agree or disagree with all of these individual items. From there, what you're going to do after you sort of complete the assessment, you're going to score it, which I've discussed here in the second point, and then discuss the outcomes of the assessment. Basically, what is it that the agency does well? What is it that they, where is it that they need to improve? Now, the scoring for this thing is actually pretty simple. So even though there's categories for strongly disagree and disagree, either of these responses would get a 0. And then, although there's categories for both agree and strongly agree, either of these responses would get a 1. So in essence, what you're doing is you're counting up the number of times you said agree and strongly agree, and that forms the score um, on the assessment, or on that part of the assessment. Now, it is entirely possible, especially because there's a good chance you don't work for this agency, that you don't know the answer to that particular question, and that's fine as well. If you have 3 or 4 of those over the course of the 100 or so items that are on this instrument. So let me just move this over a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. So what I've done here is I've created a chart actually for you to use in interpreting the score. And basically what I've done is labeled the different sections and subsections. So let me show you sort of how this sort of corresponds here. The supporting staff development, that is section 1, and section 1 is actually comprised of sort of 2 subsections, training and education, which starts here, right? So I've denoted that here and here. And then the second sort of subsection in section 1 is staff supervision, support, and self-care, which is comprised of questions 18 through 29, right? So I've sort of denoted that there. So the sort of superordinate section, supporting staff development, is questions 1 through 29. And then there's sort of 2 sections, there are 2 subsections that section is divided into: training and education, staff development, support, and self-care. Okay, so I've denoted the questions here. Now, what is a little confusing about this is each time Harris and Fallett start a new section, they restart the numbering. Uh, so you can see that here. So even though this is, question 29 to 30, it actually starts over at number 1. Now, section 2 has actually 2 subsections, and then one of these subsections has sort of a subsection, which is sort of what's here. Again, it does all sort of make sense. This is sort of a real world instrument, so it's not perfect. It's not necessarily designed to be the most user friendly. What it's designed to do is really capture information about the extent to which an agency is trauma informed. To that extent, the person who's actually completing the instrument has to do a little bit more work. So again, everything should make sense. Everything should line up. Let me know. Let me know if it doesn't. You can send me an email or post on the discussion board or something like that. So at any rate, 5 sections. Most of them just have a subsection. It's only this part of section 2 that has sort of a subsection. And actually, if you look at section 4, that's a real short overall section, just 4 questions there. So that one's pretty short. So after you've done that, after you've scored it, make some interpretations, provide some recommendations for where an agency needs to improve. Ultimately, what I'm looking for from you is a paper, probably 2 to 3 pages of text, maybe 4 or 5 pages in total, if you add on a cover page and some references. You don't need to include the assessment itself, but you can include this chart if you want. You should be able to just highlight it and then copy and paste it into a Word document. You can input the score over here. There's a rubric. Let's see, I'm going to be in the way here. There's a rubric down here on the bottom. This is a 10-point assignment. You can see sort of the breakdown of points there. In terms of the APA stuff that I'm looking for, cover page, running head, page numbers, use Times New Roman as the font, make it 12-point. Make sure your headings and subheadings are all formatted the way that they need to be. Make sure your references are complete. You do not need to include an abstract. You can. I wouldn't penalize you if you did, but you don't need to. You don't need to spend your time writing one. And I think that's everything. So it's going to be okay if the agency isn't trauma informed. Remember, this is, as we're learning this semester, becoming trauma informed really is a process. So it is entirely likely that any agency that you encounter or think about isn't going to be doing trauma informed care perfectly. The point is that this would be something that would help them along their way of becoming trauma informed. Last thing, you don't actually need to share this with an agency. You can if you want to, but this really is an exercise for us to think about how we sort of operationalize trauma-informed care in the practice setting. So it absolutely is not a requirement for the assignment or class that you share it with the agency. You may not have any contact with the agency, which is perfectly fine. So by no means do you need to share it, but you certainly could if you had a relationship with that agency, or you work there, or you knew someone who worked there, or something like that. So as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm here to help. Hope you have a great week. Thanks for watching.